Welcome to the Reading FC Community Trust Bite-Sized Podcast, brought to you by the Premier League Primary Stars team, where we speak to practitioners from the education and football world and discuss ways we can have a positive impact on the primary PE landscape. Today we welcome Adam Colley, who's a coach developer for UK coaching and several national governing bodies, who's going to talk to us today about practice design post-COVID and how this might change going forward.
Brilliant. So thank you for your time today, Adam. How are you? How's things?
Yeah, not bad. Thank you for having me. Really nice to be asked, so thanks for having me on. Things are okay. Still not sure what's going to happen, as we were talking about earlier, but yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen in terms of landscape in sport and physical activity. So yeah, make sure fingers are on the pulse constantly at the moment. So
definitely. And as you just said, it's like an ever-changing landscape. So tell us a little bit more about kind of your roles with the various national governing bodies, because I know you work across is it 4 different organisations as a coach developer?
Yeah, probably. So I started off doing more coach education for England handball and Rounders England. Really, I've always been a football coach prior and a multi-skills coach, but just found opportunities fairly limiting in sort of a football landscape. I've always worked in schools, but I just had the opportunity to work with England handball and Rounders England first off, and really enjoyed it. And then the opportunity came around when the FA rewrote their level 1, level 2, and then subsequently level 3 courses as well, to jump on board and become a tutor for those guys. So that was 4 years ago now. And then just prior to lockdown, got involved with Boccia England to deliver their new Leaders Award that's been rewritten. So that was literally like 2 or 3 weeks before everything was stopped. So be looking forward to hopefully getting my teeth into that, because it's a completely different sport, obviously, from the disability spectrum. So looking forward to that. So yeah, just a bit of a mix, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it requires kind of lots of transferable skills, or being willing to adapt to a new idea or a new practice. Like, for example, England Boccia would have a different philosophy compared to the FA or England handball. How do you find trying to manage those expectations in respect of practice design, that they want you to work in certain ways, or do you try and find a way which kind of suits the learners at the time?
Yeah, I try to blend a mixture of both, really. I think on the couple of podcasts I've done previously, there is a real difference in how handball's delivered and how football's delivered, and even rounders to a certain extent. And I try and mix a bit of both. Handball's very much, I would say, drill based, a lot of command style coaching, not all the time, but majority of the time it is a command style of coaching. Rounders is very much sort of like, I'll show you, lots of demonstration. But obviously now going down the sort of the football landscape in terms of game-based practice and teaching games for understanding, that type of thing. I'll try to put them all together. So I will take the games for understanding concept into handball and use maybe some activities that have come from a handball, sort of even a multi-skill background, and place them into football and rounders. So yeah, try and mix it up a little bit. So there is that real, so actually coaching's coaching, you're just taking on the what. Yeah.
And that's really interesting. I mean, you've touched on loads of different delivery styles there, whether it be command style, where stop, this is what I'm looking for, or rounders, where it's lots of demonstrations. So I guess that kind of leads into our first question, really, is to, if you were an NQT heading into September with all these different restrictions upon us, and you were given PE as your lesson, how would you approach it in respect of like a practice design? How would you think on the current guidelines what would work best based on your experience, really? I know it's a very tough question.
Yeah, I mean, if I would probably do exactly the same as if it was normal. Obviously, we have got to think about those restrictions and stipulations that we're going to have in place. But I think some teachers are really scared of PE, and as soon as PE gets mentioned, they're like, "Ooh." But really, I've taken a lot of the ways I maybe teach or maybe deliver. I've taken loads of great tips from how teachers would deliver a different lesson within a classroom. They just need to be given a little bit more content, a little bit more of the what, because they can do the how bit. So the first thing I would say is, what's your outcome? What do you want to do? Is it going to be on, is it fundamental movement skills, which for most, if they're working Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, that's where they should be looking. So they're looking at manipulation, stabilisation, all those sorts of things to help with the children within their groups, their bubbles. So always come out with an outcome. But secondly, can your game lead to sort of mass participation where majority of the time, most of your group are doing something? It's very easy. I see a lot of people slip back into sort of relay races and all those sorts of things, which might be appropriate in terms of social distancing when they go back. However, what they want to try and do is look at games and practices that allow for majority, if not all, of their groups to be doing something at the same time. So there isn't any sort of sitting and waiting, because then you get other things that look after themselves, like behaviour management. If everybody's doing stuff, then they're less likely to mess around, which you guys will have loads of experience of, I'm sure, where you get the kids that are doing potentially what they shouldn't be, but is it their fault or is it the practice's fault? It's one of those things. So yeah, think about how much participation is going to be going on. Other tips I would say is, would you enjoy playing it? If you're coming up with the little games and activities, are you going to enjoy taking part in it? If you look at it and read it and go, not sure, if I was in this, I wouldn't enjoy it, then perhaps your kids aren't going to either. So come out, if you've got something you think, wow, this is, I want to play, then your kids are probably going to think the same thing. And lastly, just be creative, especially in the last couple of months. The amount of coaches and teachers that have gone, right, if we can't do it this way, like we've maybe been doing for the last 5, 6, 7 years, let's try and do it this way. And there's been some real great examples of how creative people in the sport and physical activity industry have been with regards to delivering activities and coming up with new things they can do. So that's what I would say, be creative and just try things. And don't be afraid. There's so many resources out there now for teachers. There's so many things. So it's almost a bit too easy to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do, because there are so many things, like you guys, the primary stars, the resources you provide for schools. Other organisations have got so many things that NQTs could just have a look at and go, okay, I'm going to do that today. So yeah, just be creative and not be afraid to try something, because if it doesn't work, at least you had a go.
No, that's brilliant. And I like the idea on being creative, as you say, over the last couple of months where children had gone back to school and some schools said, right, completely no equipment whatsoever. Some schools said, okay, you've got this small amount of equipment which you have to clean before and after each use. And then sometimes, I mean, myself and Chris, we had the discussion as to what would a session look like without any equipment? How could you make it the most fun and engaging activity possible? And we kind of took a couple of basic ones and just ripped up the rule book and redesigned it to fit within those guidelines, which it was quite fun in that respect, as to it gets you thinking outside the box. Would you add anything to that, Chris? Or
I want to pick up on something you said, Adam, which is that it's just a sort of almost approaching it as you normally would, because I'm trying to think as a teacher, particularly when you're talking about PE, it is very often the thing that's sort of shoehorned in somewhere. It's not necessarily the focus that's given, and often almost everything comes before PE. The thing that jumps to my head is school productions and singing practice will take the hall, and suddenly, right, what am I going to do for PE? I can't use this, so what can I do? So instead of it being, I can't use the hall because there's a stage, or I can't use the hall yet because half of it's covered in food after lunchtime, instead of something like that, it's well, these two aren't allowed to get within 2 meters of each other. So it's a problem, but it's not like there's not problems within primary PE anyway. So it's just sort of adapting. And like you said, there's so much out there now that hopefully there is something that will suit almost any situation. I know schools are incredibly different, but there is some really good stuff out there for sure. And
it's I wouldn't say I had an argument, but I had a falling out with a head teacher a couple of years, actually probably about a year ago now, where it was towards the end of term, and a lot of the class I was taking for PE had been told that they had to take their PE kits home because there was no more PE. But there was my lesson the following week. So I think 5 out of the 30 kids, only 5 had their PE kits. I said, it's fine, don't worry, they can come out in just their shoes. And she said, no, if they don't have their PE kit, they can't do it. I was like, okay, and why? Why is that? She said, well, it's a footwear thing because they haven't got the right footwear. I was like, but they've just been running around on the playground in their school shoes. They're going to be doing the same thing with me. And the sort of link I was getting to there was also kids are so creative. If you watch them for 20 minutes at break time and half an hour at lunchtime, whatever it might be, they're often off doing stuff without any equipment, but they're coming up with so many great ideas and examples that actually you could potentially pick their brains a little bit, which will become one of the other questions you put for later. I'll keep some of that answer, but yeah, just watch them and observe them at break time and lunchtime and go, right, what are they doing now and how creative are they being? So
turn it into a game. If you've got no kit that you were expecting, just say, right, oh no, we've got no equipment. What should we do, guys? What should we do? If they can come up with something, fantastic, your lesson's done. If they can't, well, you're back to square one and you've got to plan something anyway. Yeah, but it's definitely a good opportunity to see what your children can do.
Exactly.
Sure.
Definitely. And I think that kind of leads nicely into the next question. When we're talking about being creative and the equipment you have available. Say, for example, if you were in a school which you had a pack of equipment per class. Say, for example, it's a small stack of cones, 4 balls, and 1 set of bibs. How, using your experience and your expertise, how could we turn that into a full lesson of which children would be engaged from start to finish with? Because I'm sure that might be a very real situation come September with, right, this is your pack, make the best out of it.
And that's why I held it back a little bit. Just give it to the kids. Just say, right, here we go. What are you going to come up with? And it could be a bit of a competition. As you could put them in small groups, because then you've got peer collaboration. So that's things that they would normally look for in a classroom setting in different subjects. There's going to be a chance for reflection, for question and answer from other groups. There could be the assessment side of things from their peers. So they're ticking other boxes as they would do within a classroom setting. And you're just giving ownership to the players. You guys, obviously from a football background, where at the moment player ownership is massive. Allow your players to come up with rules and outcomes and consequences and all those sorts of things. And I think you can find some real value. Again, look online. I get a load of my content that I go and try and deliver in schools. Some's been great, some hasn't, but I get a load of stuff from Twitter that people share, and I go, oh, I'll have a bit of that and tweak it and adjust it, and just to fire it out there. And I think, again, from a community of communication that's happened over the last couple of months, there's been so many people that have got in touch with each other and have shared their experiences. Speak to other teachers that are in the same boat and go, guys, have you got this problem where you're in your bubble because you've only got X amount of equipment? Is there anything you've done? And just share and take things and magpie things as much as possible from other people.
Definitely. And I feel allowing that ownership and being creative to say, right, we're going to focus on striking and fielding if the weather's nice, for example. They can be creative, they can adapt the rules, they're still understanding the principles. If you're setting that boundary, say, right, there's a fielding team, there's a striking team, off we go and design a practice that could be used for some sort of, we use frisbee as an example the other day, where it's an invasion sport, but there's not as much contact involved. But there's so many areas of the PE curriculum which you could tick from having that there. And as you say, just by sharing, magpieing ideas, saying, oh, this worked with me, why don't you try it this afternoon? It works on similar outcomes, but you'd change that to meet the children's needs, really. And I guess that kind of leads into the last question, really, which we had, is if you were a PE league within school, but you were responsible for delivering PE across all the different classes, different age range, has there ever been an experience which you could use a game in year 6, which could be transferred, say, down to year 3 as an example? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely, all the time. A school I used to work in, I used to go in once a week, and would have year 3, 4, 5, and 6 in a day, and I would go, right, this is what I'm going to deliver today. This is the practice I'm going to deliver, but knew that across all 3 age groups, I was going to have to tweak and adapt it to meet those needs. Biggest concept, you guys are probably more than aware of this, the STEP process, where you're looking to change those 4 areas of space. So you're making things bigger, smaller. Also the shape. So don't just do things in a square. A lot of things from a lot of sports are done in squares or rectangles. Let's put it in circles. Let's put it in triangles. Let's have different size squares. So it's so maybe there's 2 games going on. So you're looking at the change in that space. The task, obviously, now this might be a task for everybody in the group, but it might be little individual tasks, or it might be sort of tasks for small groups, not just everybody, but little clusters of groups. They may be given little restrictions, or on the flip side, they may be given greater rewards for achievement. So the task is always maybe flipped. Think about changing the equipment. So if you've got a small ball, make it bigger. If you've got like even saying, rather than a ball, let's make it a frisbee, or let's make it a beanbag, or whatever it might be, so that the equipment becomes a little bit either more challenging or allowing people to be more successful. And then obviously there's the people, so you're actually either matching up abilities or running parallel sessions where there are different versions of the same activity going along at the same time. So I think there's lots of different ways of doing it. But it's all just meeting the needs of those individuals, and as teachers, they know all of their kids, not just as a person that comes. Because if I was going into a school for a 6-week basis, I might get to know the kids by week 6. But actually, those teachers know the needs of all of their guys who are in the bubble or their class, so they're going to know what they need in terms of help, or what they need to push them forwards or to challenge them slightly. So yeah, always think about how you can add those 4 concepts in there.
I think that's massive. I think that point that the class teacher at a primary school, they are the person to make the decisions on what those children need, because they see them in so many different situations. They see them in group work, they see them problem solving, they see them with ownership within other lessons, and they're so perfectly placed to sort of judge what their children need. And so it's all you've got to do is just add a little bit of sport knowledge, which is getting better and better. There's so much more out there, and suddenly they're there. That is PE. It's just knowing the individuals and doing something that suits them.
Yeah,
massive.
Yeah, who are the ones that are going to get upset because they've lost? Who are the ones that can really take a group or take a group of people and take control and be a bit of a leader? Who are the ones that maybe are a bit of a maverick and like to do things on their own, but actually if you give them a slightly different reward than the others, then maybe they're going to start thinking about how they can link in with others in the group. So yeah, just trying to be clever really, and how to manipulate a practice so that those that need the challenge get it, but those that need that just a little nudge to help them achieve, what can you do in terms of adjustment?
No, that's brilliant, and it picked up on so many points there, and that not one size fits all, and that being willing to adapt and to change it to meet the children's needs, and the parallel activities which adapts to the more able children or those who might need that little bit more support. You touched on so many great principles there, so I hope that's given the listeners some really good ideas to take away with, and hopefully given them a little light bulb moment or an idea for them to try. So no, thank you for your time, Adam. It's been great to get your thoughts and to kind of share your experiences really. I've personally taken some good ideas from that now. I've just been making a few notes down as we've been talking. But no, thank you very much.
No worries.
Add anything to it?
Yeah, I'd just echo that. I think there's some really good key takeaways that hopefully some teachers listening to this will, like Phil says, give them that light bulb moment just about, you know what, I do know a lot of what we need to do. It might just be a couple of little things that they can find out. There's plenty of support organisations out there. Obviously, you work for half of them, it seems, Adam. There's some great ones out there. Obviously, me and Phil and the Primary Stars team do certain things. UK coaching as well. There's loads of stuff out on Twitter now. It's growing and growing every day with great resources. So just just have a play, have a little look around. But yeah, massive thank you, Adam. Thanks for your time.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me. It's been great, and I hope that has been a help. So no, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.